Imagine the shocking case of a pregnant horse named Bella, whose traumatic experience entailed an attack from a huge boa constrictor. What follows is a miraculous story of survival that shall shock you. In the countryside of Serenity lived a pregnant Maine named Bella. The farm on which she lived was a little haven, situated between the lush green fields and a sparkling river meandering through the valley. Bella slowly meandered into the meadow. Her gait was slow and deliberate due to her advanced pregnancy. Merrily, she was nibbling away, taking in the tender shoots of grass that grew abundantly. However, little did Bella know that danger was lurking in the shadows. A huge boa constrictor, its scales reflecting like polished armor, crawled noiselessly through the tall grass. The snake's eyes, cold and calculating, were fixed on Bella. It had been stalking her for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This master of stealth moved with lethal precision, its body undulating smoothly as it closed the distance between itself and its unsuspecting prey. Bella, fully engaged in her grazing, remained totally unaware of the danger that was there. Her ears twitched from time to time, picking up the sounds of the farmhands working in the vicinity, but she paid them little heed. The farmhands, laboring conscientiously to tend the land, took umbrage in the drug-like routines of their daily activities. How such comforts would soon be torn asunder without warning. The boa constrictor sprang its powerful body, coiling around Bella with incredible swiftness. The mayor's eyes widened in terror as she felt the crushing force of the snake's embrace. She yelled loudly, filled with panic, and desperation had her struggling against the constrictor grip, powerful legs kicking out each move tightening the snake's hold, squeezing the air from her lungs. The tranquil morn at the farm was shattered as Bella let out at desperate ends. Farm hands that had been scattered across the fields tending to their chores dropped everything and ran to the source of the commotion. It was Jack, an experienced rancher whose rough ire hid a heart beating fiercely for the animals he cared for, leading the pack. He had been working on this farm for more than 3 decades, and in that time he had seen his share of crises, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight that met his eyes. Bella the beloved May was entangled in the deadly embrace of a massive boa constrictor. The snake's powerful coils were wrapped tightly around her, and Bella's struggles were growing weaker by the second. Her breaths came in short, labored gasps, and her eyes were wide with terror. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the gravity of the situation. Both Bella and her unborn FO were in imminent danger. "Grab the ropes and sticks," Jack yelled to farmhands. His voice was firm, even though panic was growing in his throat. The men scrambled to comply, pale-faced with fear. Armed with whatever they could find, they approached the snake with caution. Jack knew that their chances of prying the boa constrictor off Bella were slight, but they had to try. The alternative was unthinkable. The farmhands circled the snake, and with a mixture of determination and desperation, they began efforts to free Bella. Tugging at the snake's coils using the ropes in an attempt to loosen its grip, they jabbed it with sticks in attempts to get it infuriated enough to release its hold, but boa constrictor grip would simply not yield. It was as if the snake was made from iron, its muscles contracting tighter with every move. Bella's labored breathing came as her sides heaved with the effort. Her eyes lost their brightness as they started to glaze over. Jack felt the lump well up into his throat. They were running out of time. Just when it seemed their efforts were futile, a memory flashed through his mind. Many years ago, a traveling snake charmer had visited the farm, sharing tales and tricks of his trade. One trick in particular shone bright: a method to drive snakes away using smoke. "Start a fire," Jack yelled, his voice piercing through the commotion. The farmhands stared at him in confusion. "Quickly, we must have smoke to chase the snake away." The men did not delay but fetched dry leaves, twigs, and anything else that would burn in their hands and worked with frantic speed. In a moment or two, they started a small fire, and smoke began to billow into the air. The pungent odor filled their nostrils, and they prayed it would have the needed effect. As the smoke thickened, the boa constrictor loosened its grip, ever so slight. Bella's body, which had been tormented with tension, relaxed a fraction. It was a small victory, nonetheless a victory. Encouraged, farmhands continued to stoke the fire, giving it more fuel to build a thicker plume of smoke. However, their relief was short-lived. The fire, tamed by the dry summer air, began to spread more quickly than anticipated. Flames licked at the edges of the nearby grass, and the wind carried embers towards the barn. Jack's eyes widened in horror. The barn was filled with hay and equipment. If it caught fire, the entire farm could be lost. "Half of you control the fire," Jack commanded, his voice urgent. "The rest keep working on the snake." The farm hands split their efforts, some rushing to beat back the encroaching flames while others continued their struggle with the boa constrictor. The scene was one of utter chaos. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to see and breathe. The crackle, roaring flames combined with the yelling of the men and the frantic neigh of Bella. Jack's brain was racing while trying to manage both operations simultaneously. He realized that they could not afford to waste any more time, that the fire was advancing more rapidly than their capacity for containment, and Bella's life hung precariously in the balance. Pressing upon him, he felt the weight of responsibility. He knew failure would not be an option. While the farmhands were fighting the flames, Jack focused all his attention on Bella. He knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he stroked her neck. "Hang in there, girl," he whispered, his voice full of emotion. "We're going to get you out of this." The smoke now started to affect the snake more poignantly. Its coils loosened even more, allowing Bella to take an even deeper breath. Jack saw the opportunity now. "Pull!" he yelled at the farmhands. With one heave, they pulled and tugged at the snake. With all their might, it still wasn't enough to have the snake relinquish its clutches on Bella. Things were getting worse by the minute on the farm, as the fire showed no sign of being brought under control despite the best efforts of the farmhands. And released Bella from the deadly lower constrictor grip. Realizing that they needed even further specialized help, Jack didn't hesitate. "Tom!" he yelled, his voice rising above the bedlam. Tom, a spry young lad said to have quick feet and quicker thinking, glanced back from where he was fighting the fire. "Go fetch Dr. Emily. We need her expertise now." Tom nodded comprehension of the urgency. He ran toward the stables, his heart racing in his chest. Soon, he had saddled his horse, a fast and sure gelding named Flash, and swung up into the saddle with a swift kick. He yelled Flash into a gallop, navigating the twisting country roads with urgency and determination. The ride to Dr. Emily's clinic seemed to be an eternity. These twisting roads, normally beheld for scenic beauty, had now twisted into what seemed endless barriers. Tom's mind became a jumble of thoughts. Bella and the unborn FO. He pressed harder on Flash, begging the horse for more speed. Every second counted. Meanwhile, on the farm, Bella's condition continued to deteriorate. Her struggles had weakened, and her breaths came in shallow gasps. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were beginning to glaze over, a sign that time was running out. Jack and the remaining farm hands worked tirelessly, but things were turning increasingly desperate. At the edge of town, Dr. Emily was in the middle of her morning rounds when she heard the frantic clatter of hooves. She looked up and saw Tom racing towards her clinic, his face a mask of urgency. She knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. "Dr. Emily, we need you at the farm now," Tom shouted as he dismounted. "Bella's in trouble. She's being squeezed by a big snake and can't get herself free." Dr. Emily skipped a heartbeat because she was known all around the town for her perfection with the exotic animals. But this was something for which she had never been prepared. She didn't waste a single moment and picked her tranquilizer gun and a medical kit in her hand. Mounted on her own horse, a reliable mare named Daisy. "Lead the way, Tom," she said, her voice steady despite the urgency. Together they rode at breakneck speed toward the farm, navigating familiar roads with a purpose. When they arrived, the scene was one of chaos. Smoke filled the air, and the farm hands were frantically trying to control the fire while attempting to save Bella. Dr. Emily took in the situation at a glance and quickly formulated a plan. "Everyone stand back," she ordered, her voice commanding authority. She carefully aimed the tranquilizer gun at the boa constrictor, her hands steady despite the tension. With a deep breath, she squeezed the trigger. The dart flew through the air, and hit its mark, embedding itself in the snake's thick with the boa constrictor finally subdued by the tranquilizer. The scales began to peel off, and the real challenge started. Dr. Emily, her face set with determination, directed the farm hands to carefully unwind the snake's powerful coils from body to body. It was a sensitive task that needed precision. Any jerky movement would cause further damage to the already weak mare. As they worked, tension was heavy in the air. The farm hands were streaked with sweat and soot from the fire, moving with a mixture of urgency and care. Each coil removed felt like some victory, but Bella's breathing remained shallow and labored. Her chest rose and fell with difficulty, and her eyes, though open, were glassy with pain and exhaustion. When the last coil was removed from around her body, she didn't even get to take a single deep breath before she collapsed. The farmhands quickly called the authorities to help them get rid of the huge boa constrictor. They didn't want to kill it, but neither did they want it released close to the farm. The snake had done enough damage to last a lifetime. A few men kept watch over it while the police went to the farm, as Jack and Tom turned their attention to the poor mare, unconscious on the ground. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Dr. Emily immediately performed an emergency treatment on Bella. She injected her with a mix of medications to stabilize her condition. But it was clear that the mare was deteriorating by the minute. She was weakening, and there was little time left. "We have to act fast," Dr. Emily said calmly, yet coolly, but with urgency in her voice. "Bella's foal is in distress. We need to do an emergency C-section right here." The farm hands looked at each other uneasily, but there was no time for discussion. They quickly moved to clear a space in the meadow, spreading clean blankets and gathering the necessary items from Dr. Emily's medical kit. The crowd of worried townspeople that had assembled due to the commotion stood in anxious silence, staring at Dr. Emily as she readied herself for the operation. Fear and hope mixed in the air. The sun, which earlier that day was so warm and golden, now cast long, ominous shadows everywhere. Shadows across the meadow. The birds had fallen silent. It seemed as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Dr. Emily's hands moved with practiced precision and speed. She made a careful incision along Bella's side, her focus unwavering despite the mounting pressure. The farm hands assisted her, their hands steadying Bella, providing support. Each second felt like an eternity, the tension almost unbearable. Finally, after what seemed like an age, Dr. Emily reached into the incision and carefully lifted a tiny, wriggling foal from Bella's side. Time seemed to stand still for a moment. Then the crowd erupted in cheers as the FO let out its first weak cry. Relief and joy were palpable, a wave of emotion that swept through all who were present. Bella, however, weak, groaned softly as her newborn FO was placed beside her. The sight was nothing short of miraculous. The FO, a small, delicate creature with a coat still wet and glistening, instinctively nuzzled against its mother, Bella. Despite her exhaustion, she responded with a gentle nudge, her eyes showing a flicker of life and hope. Dr. Emily, both the baby and the mother were soon in stable condition. Gone was the tension in the air, gone the fear. The people were buzzing with excitement, grateful that such a miracle had occurred from a situation that looked so dire only a few moments before. Just a second ago, Jack had come up to Dr. Emily, his face creased with relief and gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You saved them both." Dr. Emily smiled, her own eyes moist with tears. "It was a team effort," she replied, looking around at the farm hands who had come together in the face of adversity. "We did." Just as the sun was to dip below the horizon and leave behind a quiver of warm, golden light upon the meadow. The scene was one of tranquil beauty. Bella and her FO, lying side by side, both alive and safe. To the farm hands who had been there, their hearts full, they knew something miraculous had just occurred before them. Over the next few days, everybody rallied around Bella and the newborn FO. Both received day and night care and support. And the meadow that was filled with chaos and fear became suddenly transformed into a place of healing and hope. One Dr. Emily, who had been the cornerstone of the rescue, effort stayed by Bella's side. She kept a close eye on the mayor's condition, administering medications, and ensuring that both mother and baby were comfortable and well-fed. With each passing day, Bella and her FO became more inseparable. The FOA's spirited little colt, whom the townspeople had named Miracle, was healthy thanks to the watchful eyes of his mother and the caring hands of the community. News spread like wildfire about Bella and her miraculous survival. The community praised the farmhands for their effort, and also for deciding not to kill the boa constrictor, who was later set free deep into the woods. Neighboring towns heard the story too, and soon it was being told everywhere. It reminded everyone that no matter how bad of a situation there seemed to be, hope and perseverance could lead to unbelievable results. The farmhands were in awe of Bella's strength as she rapidly started picking up her strength once again. She began to walk around more, her strides becoming stronger and her eyes regaining their lively sparkle. Miracle, energetic and playful, would romp around the meadow, much to the delight of the onlookers. The bond between mother and FO was a beautiful sight, a symbol of hope and the triumph of life over adversity. What a scary ordeal would you have stepped in to help Bella? What other amazing animal rescue stories have you heard? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories.